I never thought the man who saved my life would be the one I'd have to destroy. The scent of his cologne, something clean and sharp like cedarwood and rain, used to be my anchor. Now it makes my stomach twist into a cold, hard knot. It's the smell that filled my senses 5 months ago when I woke up in a sterile white hospital room, my body a constellation of pain, with him holding my hand. His name is Leo, and according to the doctors, the police, and the fragmented, terrifying pieces of my own memory, he is my hero. The official story is this. I, Maddie, was in a catastrophic car accident on a rain-slicked highway late at night. My little sedan was T-boned by a drunk driver who ran a red light. The car flipped, landing in a water-filled ditch. I was trapped, unconscious, drowning. A random passerby, Leo, a grad student in computer science on his way home from a late study session, saw the taillights underwater. He didn't hesitate. He waded into the murky, icy water, smashed the window with a tire iron he just happened to have in his trunk, and cut me free of my seatbelt, dragging me to safety mere minutes before the car was completely submerged. He performed CPR on the side of the road until the ambulance arrived. He saved my life. He's handsome, kind, and humble. When the local news did a small segment on the Good Samaritan, he shrugged it off. Anyone would have done the same, he said, his blue eyes I once thought held the entire sky, crinkling at the corners. He visited me every day in the hospital. He brought me my favorite coffee, held my hand during the painful physical therapy sessions, and patiently listened as I wept with frustration over the gaps in my memory. The trauma, the doctors said, was to blame. My brain had protectively locked away the events leading up to and including the accident. Post-traumatic amnesia. It was normal. My family adored him. My friends said I was lucky to have found such a gem in the midst of tragedy. And I fell for him. How could I not? He was the knight in shining armor, the solid ground in the earthquake that had shattered my world. He moved in with me to help me recover, a gesture that seemed born of pure, selfless love. For months, our life was a perfect, if not slightly fragile, bubble. He'd go to his classes at the engineering school, work his part-time job at Google, and come home to me. We'd watch The Office, his favorite show, and he'd cook me dinner, telling me stories about his a cappella group days. It was idyllic. But then the cracks started to appear. Small, hairline fractures at first, so tiny I convinced myself I was imagining them. It started with his phone. He was obsessively protective of it. It was always face down, and it never left his person. If he went to the bathroom, the phone went with him. If he was cooking, it was in his front pocket. One night he was in the shower and I heard it buzz insistently on the nightstand. A notification lit up the screen. A message from an unknown number. I couldn't see the full text, but I saw 2 words that made my blood run cold. The car. My heart hammered against my ribs. Car. Why would someone be texting him about the car? The accident was a random, tragic event. He was just a passerby. I dismissed it as paranoia. My therapist said anxiety was a common side effect of traumatic brain injury. The second crack was bigger. I was feeling stronger, more like my old self, and decided to surprise him by cleaning our apartment. As I was dusting the bookshelf, I knocked over a small, ornate wooden box he kept on the top shelf. I'd never asked what was inside. He said it held mementos from his childhood. The lid flew open and its contents spilled onto the floor. Among old concert tickets and faded photographs, something metallic glinted. I picked it up. It was a key. Not a house key or a car key, but a small silver key, the kind that might open a padlock or a diary. Etched into the bow of the key were 3 letters. Maddie. My initials. A cold dread seeped into my bones. Why did Leo have a key with my initials on it? From a time before the accident? I had no memory of such a key. I quickly put everything back, my hands trembling. When he came home, I casually asked if I'd ever had a small silver key. He stopped chopping vegetables, his back to me. The silence stretched for a beat too long. Not that I know of, sweetheart, he said, his voice carefully neutral. He turned and smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Why do you ask? No reason, I mumbled. Just a random thought. The biggest crack, the one that shattered the illusion completely, happened a week later. I was battling a stubborn headache, a remnant of the accident, and was looking for aspirin in Leo's side of the closet. My hand brushed against something hard and cold tucked deep inside the pocket of an old winter coat. I pulled it out. It was a smartphone. An old, cheap burner phone. It was powered off. With a sinking feeling, I found a charger and plugged it in the guest room, closing the door. When it booted up, it required a passcode. My fingers, moving on pure instinct, typed in my birthday. The screen unlocked. My breath caught in my throat. The phone contained only two things: a series of text messages and a single video file. The texts were between Leo and a number labeled E. They were dated the day before my accident. Leo, she's leaving her office at 9 p.m. tomorrow. Usual route. The intersection by the old mill. Has to look like an accident. The payment? Leo, half now, half when it's done. Remember, no fatal injuries. Just enough to make her vulnerable. I need her to need me. E understood. The diver is on standby. I felt the world tilt on its axis. My legs gave way and I slid to the floor, my back against the door. This wasn't an accident. It was a plan. A calculated, cold-blooded plan to injure me, to make me dependent on him. Leo hadn't saved me. He had orchestrated the entire thing. He was the reason I was in that ditch. With trembling fingers, I opened the video file. It was a short, shaky clip, filmed from a distance with a long lens. It showed my car approaching the intersection. Then a blinding set of headlights speeding through the red light, T-boning my car with brutal, precise force. The camera zoomed in on the wreckage as it settled in the ditch. A few minutes later, a familiar figure, Leo, walked calmly into the frame, tire iron in hand. He didn't rush. He didn't look panicked. He looked like a man following a script. The video ended. I sat there in the silent, dark room, the truth crashing over me in nauseating waves. The man I loved, the man I shared a bed with, was a monster. He hadn't fallen in love with me by chance. He had engineered a situation where I would have no choice but to fall in love with him. He had stolen my life, my independence, and my memories, and replaced them with a carefully constructed lie. Panic threatened to consume me. I had to get out. But I was trapped. He was stronger than me. If I confronted him, he would deny it, and I had no proof. The burner phone was my only evidence. I had to be smart. I had to pretend. I erased any trace of my snooping from the burner phone, powered it off, and slipped it back into his coat pocket. For the rest of the day I acted normal. I smiled when he kissed me. I laughed at his jokes about Jim and Pam. But inside I was a vault of terror and rage. Every kind word felt like a razor blade. Every touch felt like a violation. That night as we lay in bed, he wrapped his arm around me. "You've been quiet today, Maddie," he murmured into my hair, his breath warm against my neck. "Everything okay?" "Just a headache," I whispered, forcing my body to relax against his. "And I was thinking about the accident." He stiffened almost imperceptibly. "What about it?" I think I'm starting to remember little things," I said, my voice a careful, hesitant thread. "Flashing lights. The sound of glass. It's scary." He was silent for a long moment. Then he pulled me closer. "Don't force it, sweetheart. Your mind will remember when it's ready. Just focus on getting better. Focus on us." The word was a prison sentence. The next morning I knew what I had to do. I needed to find E. I needed to understand the full scope of the conspiracy. I waited until Leo left for campus, then I went to his study. His main laptop was password protected with military-grade encryption. I'd never get into it. But I remembered the wooden box. The key with my initials. What if it wasn't from my past but for my future? What if it opened something he had for me? I retrieved the key. I searched the apartment frantically but systematically. I checked drawers, cabinets, suitcases. Nothing. Then my eyes fell on the small locked fireproof box where we kept our passports and important documents. My passport was in there. I'd seen it before. But the box had a key, a standard one that was kept on a hook in the kitchen. I'd never thought to try another key. Holding my breath, I inserted the small silver key into the lock of the fireproof box. It turned with a smooth, satisfying click. Inside, nestled next to our passports, was a thick manila folder. With shaking hands, I opened it. The contents made my blood run cold. There were pages of detailed notes about me, dating back months before the accident. My work schedule, my running routes, my friends, my family, my likes, my dislikes. It was a dossier. A stalker's Bible. There were photographs of me taken from a distance. Leaving my office, getting coffee, talking with friends. He had been watching me for a very, very long time. And then, at the bottom of the folder, I found it. A life insurance policy. Taken out a year ago with me as the beneficiary. But it wasn't for his life. It was for mine. The policy was for $2 million. And the owner and sole beneficiary of the policy in the event of my death was Leo. The room spun. This wasn't just about control. This was about money. The accident was phase 1. It was meant to make me vulnerable, to make me dependent, to make me fall in love with him and marry him. But phase 2 was always the endgame. My death. A tragic complication from my injuries, perhaps. A fall down the stairs during recovery. An accidental overdose on my pain medication. It would be so easy to explain away. And he would be the grieving widower $2 million richer. I was living with my own murderer. I had to get to the police. But I couldn't just walk in. Leo was a hero. He was charming, believable. I was a traumatized woman with a brain injury, prone to confusion and paranoia. I needed irrefutable evidence. I needed the burner phone and the contents of this folder. I heard the key turn in the apartment door. He was home early. I slammed the folder back into the box, locked it, and shoved the key into my pocket. I was just stepping out of the study as he walked in, a smile on his face. "Hey, you're out of bed," he said, setting down his backpack. "Feeling better?" "A bit," I said, my voice trembling. I hoped he would mistake it for lingering weakness. He walked towards me, his gaze sharp, analytical. He looked from my face to the study door behind me. "What were you doing in there?" "Just looking for a book. To distract myself." My mind raced. I was thinking about trying to get back into reading. His smile returned, but it was tighter now. "That's a great idea. I have a great book on cognitive recovery I can recommend." He reached out and tucked a strand of hair behind my ear, his fingers lingering on my cheek. I was thinking. You've come so far. Maybe we should plan a trip. Just the two of us. A cabin in the woods. Somewhere quiet where you can really heal. A cabin in the woods. Isolated. No witnesses." My blood turned to ice. "That sounds wonderful," I forced myself to say. His eyes searched mine, and for a terrifying second, I saw a flicker of something else beneath the caring facade. A cold, calculating intelligence. He knew I was hiding something. "Good," he said softly, his hand dropping to my shoulder and squeezing just a little too tight. "I'll start making arrangements." That was the moment I knew I was in a race against time. The perfect, loving boyfriend was gone. The predator was finally showing his teeth. The man who had saved my life was now planning to end it, and I was the only one who knew. My recovery was no longer about healing from the accident. It was about preparing for the fight of my life. I had to be smarter, faster, and more ruthless than the monster I had let into my home. The game was on, and the stakes were my life. The next few days were a masterclass in deception. I became an actress in my own life, playing the role of the grateful, recovering girlfriend with an Oscar-worthy performance. I leaned into my fragility, complaining of dizzy spells and blurred vision, which gave me a valid excuse for being quiet, withdrawn, and for spending hours alone in a dark room. In reality, that darkness was my war room. While Leo was at campus, I sprang into action. My first priority was to secure the evidence. I took the burner phone and the life insurance policy from the folder. I couldn't take the whole dossier, he would notice it was missing. Instead, I used my own phone to take clear, steady photographs of every damning page. The surveillance notes, the photos, the insurance document. I then carefully placed everything back exactly as I found it, the silver key once more hidden in its box. I needed a way to get this to the police without walking into a station. Leo would notice if I was gone for too long, and if he suspected I was on to him, my life would be in immediate danger. I remembered a detail from one of our early conversations. His part-time job at Google involved cybersecurity. The thought sent a fresh wave of terror through me. Could he monitor my online activity? My emails? My phone? I had to assume he could. I needed a completely offline, anonymous drop. And I needed an ally. The name E burned in my mind. The accomplice. According to the texts, E was the intermediary, the one who hired the driver. If I could turn E against Leo, I would have a witness. But how to contact a ghost? I scoured the burner phone again. Besides the texts from E, there were a few calls from the same number. It was a local area code. A reckless idea began to form. It was a gamble, a huge risk, but it was the only move I had. I waited until Leo was in the shower, the sound of the water a steady drumbeat that masked my movements. I took the burner phone to the far end of the apartment, my heart trying to beat its way out of my chest. I typed a text to E. Me, from Leo's phone, we have a problem. He's remembering. The plan is compromised. We need to meet. Tonight. The old mill. 11 p.m. Come alone. I hit send and immediately powered off the phone, my hands slick with sweat. I was baiting a predator, hoping the fear of exposure would be enough to make E show up. I was counting on the fact that in their world of shadows, self-preservation would trump loyalty. The response was immediate. As soon as I turned the phone back on a minute later, a message flashed. What did she say? This is a deviation. Unacceptable. I'll be there. I had my meeting. Now I had to get there without Leo knowing. The rest of the day was agony. Leo was attentive, overly so. He kept watching me, his gaze like a physical weight. You seem anxious, Maddie, he commented over dinner, pushing a strand of hair from my face. His touch made my skin crawl. The memories, they're coming back in flashes. It's disorienting, I lied, letting my hand tremble slightly as I lifted my water glass. I just feel scared. He nodded, a mask of sympathy perfectly in place. It's the healing process. Your brain is trying to put the pieces back together. It will pass. But I saw the calculation in his eyes. The timeline for phase 2 was moving up. At 10:30 p.m. I feigned exhaustion, claiming a migraine from the stress of the returning memories. I went to bed, listening as he settled on the couch to watch TV. I waited, every muscle tense, until I heard the soft, rhythmic sounds of his breathing shift into sleep. Slipping out of bed, I pulled on dark jeans and a black hoodie. I tucked the burner phone and a small, powerful flashlight into my pocket. I left my own phone on the nightstand, a decoy to prove I was still in the apartment. I crept out of the bedroom, past the couch where Leo slept, his face looking strangely innocent in the blue glow of the television. For a split second, a pang of something, grief for the man I thought he was, pierced through the fear. Then I remembered the life insurance policy. The dossier. The cold, precise planning of my near murder. I slipped out the front door, closing it with a silence that felt deafening. The old mill was a decaying skeleton on the edge of town, a place kids dared each other to go but sane people avoided. The night was cold and clear, the moon a sharp sliver that offered little light. My breath plumed in the air as I approached the crumbling brick building. I hid behind a stack of rotting wooden pallets, my flashlight held like a weapon. At exactly 11 p.m., headlights cut through the darkness. A sleek, black sedan pulled up. A man got out. He was tall, dressed in a long coat, his features obscured by shadow. He looked impatient, checking his watch. This was E. My heart hammered against my ribs. What was my plan? To reason with a criminal? To beg for his help? It seemed ludicrous now, surrounded by the oppressive silence of the ruins. I had to change the game. I had to scare him. Taking a deep breath, I stepped out from behind the pallets. I called out, my voice steadier than I felt. The man spun around, startled. He reached inside his coat and my blood ran cold. A gun? But he just pulled out his phone, using it as a flashlight to illuminate my face. Maddie? He said, his voice laced with shock and confusion. What the hell are you doing here? Where's Leo? He's not coming, I said, crossing my arms over my chest to hide their trembling. I know everything. The accident. The payment. The life insurance policy. He stared at me, his expression shifting from confusion to cold anger. I don't know what you're talking about. Don't you? I took a step forward, playing the only card I had. Leo's plan is falling apart. He's getting sloppy. He's kept a record of everything. Texts. A dossier. And he's named you. When this blows up and you'll be the one holding the bag. He'll walk away as the grieving hero and you'll go down for attempted murder. I was bluffing, painting a picture of betrayal. I saw the doubt flicker in his eyes. He wouldn't. He already is, I pressed, my voice dropping to a whisper. He texted you from the burner phone, didn't he? Asking you to meet here? That was me. He's setting you up. He thinks I'm unstable, a liability. He needs a patsy. Who better than the man who arranged the crash? I could see the gears turning in his head. Greed had brought him into this, and now fear would turn him. What do you want? He asked, his voice low and wary. I want you to go to the police. Before he does. Turn state's evidence. Tell them Leo hired you. You'll get a deal. If you don't, I have copies of all the evidence. I'll send it to the police, the news, everyone. And I'll make sure they know you were the mastermind. Leo will see to that. It was a huge risk. I was handing him a narrative where he could pin it all on Leo. But it was the only way. He was silent for a long moment, the beam of his flashlight dancing over the broken concrete. His transfer goes through tomorrow, he said finally, almost to himself. Transfer. The life insurance policy. He's moving it to an offshore account. Untraceable. Once it's done, you're a dead woman. He looked at me, and for the first time I saw something resembling humanity in his eyes. He played me too. Said it was a simple leverage job. Scare a rich girl into compliance. He never mentioned a death benefit. My blood ran cold. Tomorrow. Then we don't have much time, I said. He nodded slowly, a decision made. My name is Eric Vance. I'm a financial consultant. Leo came to me for a loan a year ago. He was in deep with some bad people. This insurance scheme was his way out. I provided the capital for the operational costs. He pulled out a business card and wrote a number on the back. This is my lawyer. Contact him in the morning. Tell him everything. I'll make the call tonight. But if this goes south, I never met you. He turned and walked back to his car without another word, leaving me standing alone in the cold, the business card clutched in my frozen hand. The next 24 hours were a blur of controlled terror. I made it back to the apartment without waking Leo. The next morning I pretended to be sicker than ever, claiming I couldn't keep anything down. It gave me an excuse to stay in bed away from him. From the bedroom I used a cheap, prepaid phone I'd bought weeks ago for online shopping. A device Leo knew nothing about, to call Eric Vance's lawyer. By noon the wheels were in motion. The lawyer had contacted the district attorney. Eric had provided recorded conversations and financial transactions linking Leo to the plot. It ended not with a dramatic confrontation, but with a quiet, efficient knock on the door at 6 p.m. Leo was in the kitchen, humming as he prepared a healthy soup for his sick girlfriend. I walked out of the bedroom, my face pale but my spine straight. When he saw the two detectives standing in our hallway, his smile didn't just fade. It evaporated, leaving behind a terrifying blankness. Then his eyes found mine. The mask of the caring boyfriend was gone. In its place was a cold, pure hatred that made my knees buckle. "Maddie," he said, his voice dangerously soft. "Leonard Grady," one of the detectives said, "you are under arrest for conspiracy to commit murder, attempted murder, insurance fraud, and stalking." He didn't resist. He just stared at me as they read him his rights and led him away. "I saved you," he whispered as he passed me, the words a venomous curse. "No," I replied, my voice finally steady. "You tried to own me. And I just took myself back." The aftermath was a different kind of trial. The media circus was brutal. The story of the hero-turned-monster was too sensational to resist. But through it all, I had the truth on my side. The evidence was overwhelming. The burner phone, the dossier, Eric Vance's testimony, and the life insurance policy formed an unassailable case. Leo never confessed. He maintained his innocence, claiming I was a traumatized, unstable woman who had fabricated the entire story out of paranoia. But the jury saw through him. He was convicted on all counts and sentenced to life in prison without the possibility of parole. I sold the apartment and moved to a new city, a place with no memories. The physical wounds have healed, but the psychological ones are deeper. I still startle at sudden noises. I have nightmares of drowning, of cold water and colder eyes. But I am free. Sometimes, late at night, I think about the random chance that led Leo to me on that dark road. I think about the intricate web he wove, a web designed to trap me forever. And I think about how, in the end, the weakest thread in his perfect plan was the one he never accounted for. Me. Not the victim he created, but the woman I was always meant to be. The one who fought back. I never got my old life back. But I built a new one, stronger and more my own than anything that came before. And I learned the most important lesson of all. Not all monsters look like monsters. Sometimes they look like your savior, smell like cedarwood and rain, and promise to love you until the day they plan to kill you.